What about men who use social media to express indirectly about their ex? That's a huge petty alert right there.
So, from a strategic perspective, because again, I'd say probably 80% of the dudes that come to me are they got dumped, they got friend zoned, and they didn't want to be because they typically, now it's assuming that the girl's normal, but most of them typically have a pretty decent woman. But the guys that have the biggest problems, usually the woman's a lunatic as well. But we're assuming that it's a good woman, and so they're trying to get the X back. And so oftentimes these guys, without realizing it, have like over pursued to the point. Sometimes they get blocked. Sometimes the girl unfollows them on social media. They unfollow each other. Sometimes she just ghosts him outright because he just doesn't get the message. And then what happens? He just stops. He stops all forward movement and chasing and pursuing because it's getting him nowhere. Now, I'm sure you guys have all had this experience. You told a guy you weren't interested, and they continue to call, they continue to text, they continue to try. They're sending you DMs every once in a while, hoping that your mind changes or whatever. But in this case, it's like you have to recognize that you never try to keep somebody who doesn't want to keep you. And so in these cases, the girl is making no effort, or he calls her and talks to her, and she talks about getting together, but she's always too busy to do it because it's just she doesn't want to do it. You look at what people do, not what they say. And so the quickest way to get somebody else's attention is to remove yours. And so if they're taking your time and your attention for granted, if you love and value yourself, then you're just simply going to go give it to somebody else who wants it, who values it, who appreciates it. And so with the social media thing, is that if somebody has blown you off and rejected you, especially if it's to the point where they're just not even responding to you anymore, what happens is it gets the worst thing that the guys do in these situations. They go cry the blues to everybody in their social group. Oh, she dumped me. It was terrible. So they make themselves look weak, and then all the girls in their social group know that the guy has basically behaved weak, or that he's crying the blues in his beer, and he's really distraught over the breakup and getting dumped, and this is what's getting back to her. And she feels good about it because, quite frankly, in most breakups, especially when you didn't want a breakup to happen, you're always going to naturally kind of feel better if the other person's not doing as good as you, or the next person they dated isn't as attractive, or they're not as happy, or whatever it happens to be. You tend to feel a little bit better. And if the guy's trying to get a girl back and all she hears through the grapevine is that he's just being a big mangina and a big pussy, instead of him moving on with his life and posting on social media, like when he's out, maybe he's hanging out with his hot sister and her sorority sisters or whatever, but they all look like they're having a good time. And if 2 or 3 weeks have gone by and she was kind of enjoying the attention and validation from him, even though she wasn't really even responding anymore, but then he's withdrawing it. And so what happens is her feelings and attractions kind of start to creep back up. And then what oftentimes happens is she'll start watching like his Instagram stories, and then maybe she starts liking his posts, and then she might start commenting on his posts, kind of testing the waters to see.
Been there, done
And then
that.
you just don't do anything. You just let it be. And then if she texts you or calls you or messages you through a social media app, that's usually the next step. But it's like you'll see those things in progression. And so if she's hearing through the grapevine that, oh, he was out with this really hot girl last weekend, and the other girl saw her or met her, or he was making out at a party with some really pretty girl and they left together. It's like that stuff gets back to her versus, he feels like his life is over and he may move away or move back in with his parents, or, he a lot of guys will put out is like their lives have just been destroyed because they get dumped. Whereas if you're trying to get her back, you want her to be like, wow, he moved on pretty quick. Maybe he really didn't care about me that much. How can he move on so fast? And then maybe the guy that she had met that she was hoping was going to turn into something that goes sideways. And now she's got nobody that she really likes. And then now the guy that was really after her a few weeks ago or a month or so, or maybe the ex that she dumps, she starts trolling his social media and then sees that he's with girls that are really pretty or maybe even prettier than her. And she assumes just because of what's on social media, he's probably sleeping with them. And you guys like men more if they're popular with women, especially if they're with really pretty women. A guy you weren't even that interested in. That's like, there's an article I did years ago called "How to Get Women to Approach You First," and it's like one of the things you do in that is that, like, if you're out in a bar or a party or somewhere, you stay next to a high traffic place, you and your guy friends, and you just talk to each other and pretty much don't pay attention to anybody else. And you're having a good time, and all the girls are walking around, and they have to go to the bar to get drinks. And if you guys aren't really paying attention, and they walk by, and you guys look like you're the only ones having fun, because the rest of the dudes are all kind of stuck in the corner, and they got the beer in front of their chest, and one hand in the pocket, and they're kind of not like, they don't look like they're having a good time. They're just kind of staring you guys down. I'm sure you've all had that experience. And then there's this group of guys that, like, they just seem like they're the only ones in the place having a good time, and they're not really paying attention to anybody. And so what happens is, as women walk by, they start looking in to the group and smiling because they're all laughing and you're having a good time. I think it's just easy to say, "Hey, what are you girls up to?" And then, you cheers their glass, you talk to them for a minute or two, and they're laughing, joking. And you say, "Hey, well, I'm gonna get back to my friends," and then you go back to your friends. And even if those are average-looking girls, what happens is, over the course of a half hour or 45 minutes to an hour, is the really hot women that are kind of at the tables or whatever, or see this, weren't that interested. And then what happens is they just constantly, they're every time they look over that you're with different women, it seems like you know everybody. And if you know everybody, all these different women are coming by, even though it might be total strangers, to other women observing this, it looks like you kind of know everybody. And so then what you notice is that the prettier women start coming over later. And so it has that effect. And so guys trying to get his ex back, and he's posting on social media, it looks like he just moved on, is having a great time. As a matter of fact, he's surrounded by beautiful women, and some of them are even prettier than her. She's going to fill in the blanks. And if there's any kind of interest, she'll reach out and start, looking at your social media or your stories or liking your posts. And then eventually, when you still don't do anything, that causes dread and fear inside her, worrying about, did
The
I
other
lose
people.
them?
Yeah.
Did somebody else come along? What happened? And then she becomes more bold in reaching out. And that's what he wanted. And then now she's pursuing him. It's her idea. She contacts him more as her interest goes back up. He lets her come to him. And then eventually gets her back.
I think in the case of this viewer, though, I think from my understanding of the question is using social media to express indirectly about their ex. It could be like, because it's happened, like, at least to me, it's happened before where, say, the person dumps their ex and then their ex is still so petty and butthurt over the breakup that
they
he
say
ends
things
up
on social media.
yeah, or like
He's trying to
for me,
Their
get her
Facebook
back.
status.
Like,
yeah,
look what I'm doing.
yeah. Well,
You don't
that
want to look butthurt, and a lot of guys look butthurt and petty, and they're like, and when the
it's a
girls see
total
that,
turn
yeah,
off.
exactly, you can tell he's losing his shit and he's not dealing with it well. But if it looks like he just, like, literally from one day to the next went from you to somebody even hotter, or potentially several women hotter, it completely changes the attitude, and they go from not caring to reconsidering. And as the weeks go by, and she hears more and more through the grapevine that he's just having a great time, and he's sharing some of his experience. Maybe he got online dating or whatever, and so he's meeting all these different women. His confidence is through the roof, and so she is hearing through the grapevine about a guy that seems to be even better and happier now that she's not around, and that kind of gets under her skin.
But you also don't want to contradict yourself, because women these days and with the new generation, it's like a lot of women have so much confidence now and know
Yeah.
their self-worth that if you go posting that you're with a bunch of girls and stuff right after the breakup or even months after the breakup,
They're just pictures.
she's just gonna look at that and be like, you know what, I saved myself from like a
Yeah.
trash
I
man.
agree.
Because if he's gonna flaunt and know I'm seeing these stories, I don't want him anymore.
Why would you take that as flaunting if he's just posting pictures of him enjoying
Because
his life?
he's trying
Some of them
to, like,
do that.
he's trying to
'Cause
give off
we
a
know
vibe.
guys are petty and they
Yeah,
know
they're-
we're watching. So
They
if you're
know.
posting that,
Or if you got
know.
dumped and then you're out with a new, like, look at in Jocelyn's case with the guy that you had a breakup and then you met somebody else pretty quickly, and you were pretty happy that you met somebody quickly, and then it got back to your ex
Yeah.
and you felt better about it. It's kind of the same thing. So that's kind of maybe those pictures don't all end up on social media, but it's like just the fact that you're at a party and there's, I think there were three guys at that one party that were interested in you, or two different guys
It
that
was
had interest in
two. It
you,
was two.
and so that works in your favor, especially when you're trying to move on, and it's the same mindset, the same
But it
mentality.
turns out one of those guys
Because
that had
you're communicating confidence versus, oh, I'm crying on my beers
Mhm.
every night and I don't think I can go on
Yeah.
with my life because I got dumped.
Yeah, and funny enough, one of those guys that had interest in me turned out to be my boyfriend now. So there's that.
Yeah, but in this case, the guy is like trying to get her back, you said, and I don't think it's a form of trying to get her back. That's gonna push her even more away. She's gonna be turned off at the
Yeah.
fact that like you've been hanging out with so many girls, hooking up with so many girls. Like happy for you that you're happy and having a great
Well, you're making
time.
the
Yeah.
assumption that he's sleeping with all of them.
Well,
He
if
just
he's
looks like
hanging
he's
out,
out having a good time.
yeah, but you said, oh, he's kissing girls, hanging
It
out with
still
girls.
gives the
Yeah, I
impression
didn't
that
say
he's
he's
out
posting
pouring
pictures like
around.
that.
Yeah.
He's just out having a good
Yeah,
time.
but
Like,
girls have a crazy mindset, and that's automatically what she's gonna think. You're
Yeah.
who are all these new girls you're hanging out with? Like, who knows what you're doing? And then that's just
They
gonna
are-
turn
Thinking
you
they
off.
about you though.
They can
That's the
assume
key.
they say they don't like it, but at the end of the day,
Dude,
it
But
makes
be like,
them
I'm
like you
gonna
more.
find
they also
a better
assume
guy.
the same
Yeah,
thing
but-
with us too. If
yeah.
we're having fun, it's like, oh, you
If
know,
you're
it's the
gonna
same
go
thing.
out of your way and be like a trashy person and do like
Yeah.
these nasty
These
things,
are not
I'm
things
not gonna waste
where
my time.
pictures and stuff are being rubbed
It
in their
doesn't
face.
even matter if like I hear it through the grapevine and
That's something else.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, guys also
and
assume the
shit
same
went
thing.
down.
They do.
I'm not gonna.
If
I don't-
he's moved
I don't
on
have
and he's
time
no
for
longer
that.
calling you,
I don't have time for that.
He
the
doesn't have time
interest
for you.
creeps back up.
Clearly, he didn't have the time to have the respect.
But you
and
can tell
the
she's bothered by
conversation.
it, and that's the point.
Because
It's
I've been
before she's
disrespected.
ignoring him. She ghosted him because he was so needy and over pursuing, and now he's completely stopped all movement. And now you're complaining that it's bothering you that he's with other girls, and that's the point. If it bothers you, it means you still care
No,
on some
that's
level.
not what-
Because if you didn't care,
That's not
you would
what
not
we're
be
talking
bothered.
about.
That's not what she was trying to go for.
All I know is if at first I thought you were clean and annoying and I was already turned off, you're only giving me another reason to be not interested in you anymore because of seeing how you're going about your life now. Like,
You don't like him having a good time?
well, posting a bunch of girls, no. It's giving Playboy and
Yeah.
it's gross.
If he's posting one
If he's with his guys
picture
and
a
stuff,
week and there's
Yeah.
girls there, I'm
But
not
if
talking
I-
like he's posting every day,
No, if he's
thirst trap wise, but if he's posting pictures of himself with the groups of people and the people he's hanging out with, the girls that he can be hanging out with the girls that he works with. But at the end of the day, if you're hearing about him moving on, because if you were like, I don't really think of him as a friend anyways, who cares? But if you hear that he's moved on and he's happy and there's still some kind of interest back, you'll still reach back out. I mean, look how long you've hung on to boyfriends and when things weren't going well and you knew it wasn't going to work out.
I've
even though
never
things were
seen them with
obvious.
other girls or post anything with other girls. If
Well,
I did,
yeah.
I would have been completely
Well, the
turned off.
football player had girls in the bedroom when you were on a FaceTime.
Yeah,
And you still,
but we were dating already.
yeah, but there were girls there and he had lied to you about it and then you were bothered by that.
Yeah, but we were dating. We're talking about him wanting to get this girl back. That's not a form of getting her back. Trust me, with the
We're-
girls
yeah.
in this generation, we have so
You
many
were bothered
influencers.
by the fact that he had girls in his room because he had his shirt off. I remember that,
That wasn't the room. That was outside.
or wherever.
I'm just saying, like, for the guys out there, if you really think this is gonna work, there's with the generation, like, we have so many beauty influencers that have boosted these girls' self-esteem, and something like that is gonna turn them off. There might be some who are like, ooh, goo goo gaga, but majority is gonna be like, ew.
Mhm.
Like, no.
Yeah.
I know my worth and I'm
Yeah.
gonna find a better guy who
we don't have time for that.
isn't out there doing what he's doing.
Yeah, because the thing is, since we're not giving them the attention that they're trying to bait us into giving them, it breaks their ego into a million pieces.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you doing that, you're winning. Like, if they think it's gonna, like,
It's not even about winning or losing. It's about having the self-respect. For me,
Or like you with your new boyfriend, you've posted pictures with him
yeah.
on social media, and now like you're blocked from your ex, like you don't hear from him ever. Like he hasn't even tried to reach
No,
out
he blocked
afterwards.
my phone number, but he didn't block me on social media.
But he hasn't like tried to reach out after like,
No,
seeing you.
no. And I
with
hope he
him.
doesn't, because I'm really good where I'm at right now.
So I know guys will see you with another guy and they're like,
And they get like instantly jealous.
yeah. They're just like,
And it's like, well, dude, it was your time. Your time's up. You should have done better.
Same thing with the guy.
No, but I mean,
They're basically saying, no, it doesn't apply to us, Corey. We're invincible because we're the younger generation.
I'm just trying to save guys because if they're gonna go do that thinking they're actually gonna benefit of getting this girl back and they lose them, that's on you guys. Like,
Yeah, I agree.
You're messing it up for yourself.
They already lost him. She doesn't want anything to do with him. They've been friend zoned, and that's the point. Is that it works? I mean, if I've been doing this a long time, you can see it in the reviews. I see it in the success stories, the emails. You say you're immune to it and you're different, but every single time you got dumped or you got dumped and you heard that your ex was with some other guy, you were bothered by that and you were talking about it because you guys would come in and you were talking about those things. And that's the point. If you didn't care and you were totally over it, you were like, hey, good for him. I'm glad he's happy and he's living his life. It's not, oh, I would never give him another chance. Well, if that was the case, you wouldn't have given a shit. You would have been happy because when you love somebody, you want them to be happy even if it's not with you. And so if he's looks like he's moved on, he's having, maybe when you dumped him, he was bawling his eyes out and you were worried the guy's going to off himself. And then a week or two later, he's moving on with his life and having a good time. And if you really wanted him to be happy because you cared for him, if he's with somebody else, you wouldn't be sniping at him going, oh, I'm glad I'm not with him anymore. You'd be like, you're happy that he met some other girls.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be giving him shit. I'd be like, I'm happy for you, but I wouldn't go back. And I've never went back to any of my exes in any case of them being with someone else or seeing them with someone else.
Because you dumped them when you were ready to dip.
Or the
And
relationship.
because most
didn't
women
work.
will stay with a guy when the feelings are totally gone. And oftentimes in these cases is the girl still has interest, but he's displayed so much unattractive behavior that he has to stop it and he has to start displaying attractive behavior. And it always has worked better than anything. At the end of the day, if you're successful with women, you're going to be more attractive to other women. I've seen it over and over. Like I was talking about earlier, the article where you go into a bar and nobody really approaches you. Maybe the average not so attractive women come up to you first. And then as the night goes on and the other girls in the place see it, what you notice, and my students have all had this experience many, many times, is that the women that approach your group get prettier because they see the social proof that other pretty girls are coming over and talking to you.
Yeah. Actually, one of my ex-boyfriends once directly expressed themselves about me in this case it was Facebook, but this was like years ago. I actually had a friend of mine who had to tell me that happened because like at that time I was already done using Facebook. I still have my Facebook, but I haven't touched it in years. And so, yeah, when he got upset that I broke up with him and stuff, I guess a little after, he just decided to put on a video about, if I can recall, it was like, girls appreciating their men for what they do and all that kind of stuff, yada, yada, yada. And then saying, oh, you know who you are. And I'm just like, and the video had to do with that, but it was more towards the woman should submit to the guy to the fullest. And I'm just like,
That's so childish.
yeah. And then what the same friend that told me about it, she ended up commenting on his thing. He didn't respond. So I'm just like, that is super unattractive.
Well, I had a story that I told in my book that I had a girl that I was dating, and this was when I was still learning this and learning the art of pursuing too much, coming off as little needy, calling too much, texting too much, trying to move things along to a relationship a little quicker than she was ready, and then pulling back too much and being too cold and too distant. And so this particular girl that, after we got together and we got serious, I remember her telling me, he's like, I never thought my feelings would go beyond platonic friendship for you. Because she was convinced that, because that's the way she felt at the time. And I remember I was dating other women, she was dating other guys, and I'd been a little too cold and a little too distant, and she was starting to get a little more serious with this other guy. And I ran into another girl that I had screwed things up with several years before, so I got a second chance. And I told that whole story in the book too. And so I'm on a date with her, and because the other girl is just kind of, I think I tried to make a date with her, and she was like, I'll get back to you. And it just wasn't progressing. And because I was kind of still stuck in that limbo land, kind of platonic, kind of romantic feelings, just because I was vacillating back and forth in what I was doing. And then I go out with this girl, we go to dinner, and we're all over each other, and we're walking to my car, and I ran into the other one's boss, who she's out with her husband. And then, like, literally 9 a.m., I'm driving to my office the next morning. I get a call from the one, and it just, like, just 4 or 5 days before when I want to go on a date, she was just like, couldn't have, couldn't have cared, really didn't matter to her. But as soon as she heard that I was out, because her boss went out of her way to let her know that this girl was beautiful I was on a date with. And because she mentioned this to me, and I remember what she said. She says, "Hey, I was just calling to see how your night and your evening went," because she knew I was on a date. And I said, "It went great. How was yours?" and and she started talking about her, and I said, "Yeah." She's like, "I heard she was really beautiful, and she really liked you." I was like, "She's cool." And she says, "Well, I just wanted to make sure you're aware of all of the possibilities that you have before you make any final decisions or anything." And, in other words, implying that before I got serious with anybody else, like, I really should consider her. And so I ended up making a date with her. And it's like, in that date, she was just, like I said, a week before, she was a cold fish. And this date, it was like, it was a night and day difference. It was a switch because she didn't think I had anything else going on or that I could do better than her. And she was very cocky because I had made my feelings too known. And then honestly, at the time, I was more into her than she was into me as far as her feelings towards me. But being out on that date with that other girl completely changed her attitude. And the other girl ended up getting back together with her boyfriend that she had kind of been temporarily broken up with. And last I heard, they lived happily ever after. And but it was a complete attitude change, and it was just because she knew there was another really beautiful girl out there that we were having fun, and she became more aggressive because she didn't want to lose me. Scarcity creates value.